Hi there, friends. So, I want to quickly show off today what we call the demo or show and tell style event. And I do this usually about twice a year within my own British Columbia chapter. And the show and tell event is nothing too fancy. It's basically just done in sort of the Pecha Kucha or lightning talk style, but without the hard limit on like auto advancing slides and the other things you might have with that. And so I use it in two different ways in my chapter. Every January, I do the hot technology trends for the coming year event. And then usually about mid-year, I'll do the show me some cool tools to use. And that's like as broad as the theme goes. And what's super fun about this event is it's pretty easy to schedule because you don't need to find a presenter who wants to put together an hour's worth of content and slides. Rather, you can go to anyone in your existing community, your co-organizers, any prior presenters, and say to them, I want you to come for 5 minutes maximum and just do a quick informal like show and tell or a demo of what you think we should be paying attention for the coming year. And so I'll turn on the share screen and show you the overall sort of description I've got for the event format. And then after that, I'll actually show you what a couple of them look like when they're on a live event. So the secret of this is that it's all 5 minute demos, which means you're going to invite a whole bunch of people in there, usually maybe up to 8 or so. And if one person is a bit of a dud, eh, so be it. Over in 5 minutes, off you go to the next one. So the audience is, of course, quite forgiving. The other
Yeah.
secret about this kind of thing is because all these people have already pre-committed to doing their demos. One, they're going to show up because they've made a commitment. And two, you now have got 8 different people who are out there willing to promote the event into their own community because they're involved with it. You've also got that aligned incentives. And so typically what this event looks like is it's half pre-scheduled and half actually crowdsourced in the moment of the event. And so usually I would say as long as I've got 4 people who have pre-committed to doing these demos, afterwards you can say, and anyone else want to do something? And other people can jump in, or sometimes other people will want to show off a second demo. And so within the kit here, you'll see I've got basically just some tips on where you might recruit people, like that you don't need to have all of them at the beginning. You can sort of just recruit a couple people and then crowdsource the rest of the event. And then I've got basically the cut and paste thing you can do for your event title, the event photo, the event description. But the real secret to it is that you're just going to go out there and speak with your existing community, whether that's attendees and especially every past presenter you've ever had. This is a great way to bring them in. The other version of this is what I start with each January, which is basically the trends event. And it's structured almost identical. It's 5 minute demos. And this time you just have the broad theme of what should we be paying attention to in the coming year. And again, you would recruit those people, past presenters, your members, and of course your co-organizers as well. And so this is nice because you can get to basically, I usually do it twice a year, and it's another way to be interactive because it opens up the space for other people to get involved. And just to show you what that actually looks like in practical use, I'll show you what that looks like, say, in my own Vancouver chapter. If we go back to January. So here would be the event. You'll see I had 124 RSVPs, which is like twice or more than my usual event is, because this is like one of the most popular things we do because there's so many different presenters and so many different topics. And so here was the event page where basically I listed out like the topic and all these people. And almost all these people are, in my case, people who presented in the last 2 years. So I went back to them and said, who would you want? And then I also started up a sort of a conversation and a call to action for people to tag themselves in a LinkedIn post and say, who would you recommend? And so between that, we had about 11 people. And then after the event, I took some of the slides and the resources and added it to the event page. And then you can see, here's all their speaker cards. Look at all these great people. So smart, so wise. The other secret about this great event format is it's a great way to test for future presenters. So you'll see actually David Fu, who I didn't know before, and also Charles, who were both sort of people who were referred to by other people on my LinkedIn post. Both did great 5-minute demos. And so I came back to them later and said, do you want to come back and do a full 45-minute presentation later this year? And they are both had a great time and said yes. So it's also these quick demo things are a great way to test out who might be really good as a guest presenter in the future. And then if you really want to go into, there is the video here. You're not going to hear the sound, but basically it's got all the demos right here. And the other thing I did, because I'm especially nerdy, is I just cut these into the 5-minute demos and then shared them out on LinkedIn, tagged everyone over actually the next 2 weeks. So that was another way you can leverage this content and go wild. But that's extra. You don't need to go and do that. So that's what it typically looks like. Questions? Has anyone tried anything similar in the past?
That sounds pretty tremendous, Eli. And that's just incredible that you are connected to all those people. I'm climbing the ladder, trying to identify people. I think maybe by later in the year, we'll have a few that might accept the invite to, and it's pretty comfortable, especially when you tell them you'll support them and we're just going to have fun with this and talk a little bit about what you like to use, like you said, almost every day or every week. So
yeah, I would say I certainly have a big network after 10, 12 years of doing this in Vancouver, but I'm still finding new people, because that's the magic of, you go to those past presenters and say, who else do you think should be here? Do you have any colleagues, anyone else you think would be good? And yeah, it's definitely a great way just to rapidly expand out the network, find more people who want to get interested. And the great thing about it is, if one doesn't work, if one person has a technical failure, you're like, oh, that's great. We've got a couple others to go there. And I would say your minimum threshold is if you can get 4 demos committed to ahead of time, one by yourself to show the model, and then maybe 3 other people, maybe your 2 co-organizers to do a quick demo. Then usually once people get excited about it, the attendees will actually jump in and fill in the gaps. And so they're usually the second half of the content. But this is just me talking about it. Why don't we actually show what this could look like? So I'm going to turn on my share screen again and show you 2 of the quick demos or things that I want to show, both of which actually I learned in prior versions of these demo events in the past from other people. So let's pop in here and show you. You should be seeing this text document here. And the thing I learned, and the thing I use all day because it's changed my life, is to use a text expansion utility. There's a couple out there, things like Text Expander. I think I'm currently using something called, I don't even know what it's called. It's called Typinator. And what these are is something that allows you just to auto expand something you're going to type all the time. And you've probably run into things like this because there's a similar feature built into Microsoft Word and the Microsoft Suite, but it's obviously limited to just their tool. But what this does is it works across all apps in your organization. So if there's things you type all the time that you want to just spit out, you can do this by just defining out some constant terms and have them expand. So I type my email all the time, but my last name is too long. So I just have an expander that goes Eli@V, and boom, it spits it all out. Or you're like, oh, my phone number. Oh, I don't want to type that again. I'm just going to go like this, type phone, and it just spits it out. Or, oh, I just want my work address. Let me just get my whole work address there. And so you'll see I just type in W address, and boom, it spits it all out there. And you can get even more sophisticated with that. You can have it drop things like pop-ins here. So you could make it a little bit dynamic where you'd say, oh, here's this whole thing I want to auto expand, but I want to leave just 2 fields that I want to type in the answers to. You can also, of course, put in more dynamic things. So I've got one here just to spit out the current date. So I just did DDATE, and boom, it just spits out the date.
And how do you start that? Where do you set it up?
So you would need to install an app. In my case, I'm using Typinator, but there's lots of very equivalent ones. Text Expander is the most common cross-platform thing. And I use this for all the kinds of things I've typed. So in fact, today when I went into the chat, I was like, oh, I want to share the link to that Texas chapter. Well, I'm like, I could go to the site, or I could just type comma Texas, and boom, there is Mark's URL for his chapter. And I get to define those by, you just go into the app and
Okay.
say,
Yeah. Yeah.
here's my abbreviation, and then what should
Right.
it be? And so you can do anything you want around it, but I typically have two like mental models. So I usually say, oh, if it's comma something, it's going to spit out a URL. And if I go, and usually otherwise, if I want it to be something that's like a big block of text, I usually double up the characters. So for Public Good App House, I go PPUBLIC, Public Good App House there. And so that's what I do. And it can just save you over time, hours of your life, lots of things that, you know, that you would otherwise make mistakes with. You can just like have it boom. And so I really love this because I think it's a great way to just save time and not be so frustrated about cutting back and forth. Because the other thing you can do, of course, is you can use like things like Pastebot, which is basically like an advanced clipboard, which allows you to clip not just one thing, but multiple things. I believe actually something like this is built into Windows. Clipboard. The Macintosh does not have that by default. So I install another app like Pastebot that would do the same thing. And that's really nice because when you cut and paste something, you can now have a history of it. So you go in and say, oh, let me go in and use something like Pastebot and say, I'm just gonna so it would show you, here's your clipboard. And instead of just spitting out what it most recently did, you can say, here's like the last 100 things I've put into a clipboard. And you can also just say, oh, it's number 3. I'll just click number 3.
Yeah. And
Boom.
in Windows, it's the Windows icon and the letter V, and that
Oh,
will.
that's fabulous. Yeah, good. Thank you, Microsoft. That is a great feature that should be built into every operating system because I
Yeah.
think this is super indispensable and saves all of us the grief of going back and forth, tabbing back and forth when you got to copy 3 things out of a document and move it into an email. You can just go copy, and then go to the other place and go paste.
All of these have a fee, though. I'm looking them
Yeah,
up.
this is true, and I will admit that they do have fees. Frankly, I'm thrilled to pay because they save me
Yeah.
so much grief. But yes, I think there may be some freer options out there, but the things I've tended to land on are some of the paid ones. But yeah, so that's a good heads up that there might be some associated costs with some of these. And Jerome, thank you for dropping those links into
Yeah.
the chat. Appreciate it. So that's my first demo. I might have gone a little over 5 minutes. Tip, it's great to have a second person play the timekeeper role. You can just say, you've hit 5 minutes. You're like, almost done. But Jerome, would you love to do a quick demo to show us
Yeah.
something that you're doing?
Yeah. Sure. Definitely want to do that. So what is it? You get the cane around my neck and you pull me off stage when my time is up.
Exactly. I'll go.
Okay. Because I'll do my best to give you the 5-minute version here. And then if you want to talk about more, we'll talk about more. Okay. So you're seeing my screen share. Is that coming
Yeah,
through okay?
looks great. I'm
All
seeing
right.
Power BI.
Yeah. So this is the end point. And so we want to know, how do we go from nothing to get to this point? So I want to just give a short demonstration of how my organization is benefiting from being a member of TechSoup. And one of the advantages of doing that as a nonprofit is that we qualify for, I think it's 9 seats of Microsoft 365. I thought it was 10, but it seems like it's 9. But and then through that, you have this nice ecosystem, this nice SharePoint platform. Okay, and so what I'm just putting some reminders to myself up here. It might be a little difficult to see on the screen. I don't know how well it's coming through,
It's
but
coming
let me
through
just
okay.
yeah, it's not that it's not something to copy down, but I could put it in the chat later if it's of interest. You create an Office 365 group. Maybe you already have them. And then within the Office 365 group, you can create a form. And I'll go through these steps. When you create a Microsoft form, Microsoft Power BI, because it's part of the same ecosystem, can connect to it. And once you've done that, you can share it to others in your organization, or if you want to use a link shortener, where I've been using tinyURL, you can use that if you want to make it public or just unannounced. You could send it to the people and they can do something with that. Okay, so let's see, how did we get to here? All right, I'm going to put up, not that one. Let's see, one of the, where's my, not that one. Where did everything go? Maybe I'll just start. Yeah, I think I can start from here. So what I did is I created, nope, that's, let me just go back. This is the form, but I want to show you how we actually start the form. Okay, here we are. Okay, so this is what, and I'll close these down. Yeah, so here we are on this, like you could say this is the starting point. And I have a SharePoint for my organization. And here I created a form. So it's already created. I'll go over to what the form itself looks like here. So here I am in my group forms. So maybe this is a little bit better. I click on Microsoft 365. I go into forms. It brings me here. The important thing here, if you remember one thing, is create your form in a group. You're not obligated to do that, but the advantage of creating it within the Office 365 group is that it makes it easier for Power BI to find it. Okay, so I created it in there. And let me just shut that one down and shut that one down. And so I can go into the group. I'll just open it from here. And this is one that I've used before, so there's no worries about privacy of data. It's the screen for digital inclusion. And this is when we had a session on to what extent is your organization or your community digitally included. And one of the national definitions, I think, in the United States is that you have 5 things available to you. You have internet, you have a device, you have apps, you have training and support. So this was sending out this survey. Okay, so you could share it. You can make a shorter URL. You can make a tiny or a bit.ly URL, and people can complete it. All right. And then once you have done that, you can certainly look at the responses in here. We like to use Power BI. So what I did was, this is the Power BI tool. So I need to connect to that data that was collected. All right, and I'm just going to expand the ribbon here. So I would click on, once I launch, let's say I'm over here and I've got a blank screen, I would launch and go into selecting a web connector. And is that going to come up here? And then I put in here the URL for where the data is. All right, and the way you find out where the data is, if you don't have it, say, memorized, let's see, I would just jump back, not to that one. Where was my other page? Over here. Yep, over here. It's this file here. And when you do this a lot, and actually this might be a nice one for Text Expander, I have this memorized. It's my YTB Rocket SharePoint. It's a site, it's the YTBRN, it's your documents. But of course, sometimes you might make a typo or something. So the way you get it is you open the file. Actually, I should have just opened it in the desktop app, which also courtesy of the Microsoft donation through TechSoup. It comes up here. So once you do this once, you know how to do it, but it may seem like, how the heck do I get to it? So that's the data. You go into File and you go into Info and you copy the path. Okay, and actually that's all you
I
need.
did not know about that trick.
Yeah, it's not a trick. It's actually a feature. That's the way you get it. And then now here's the, I don't know if it's a trick, it's a half a trick. You paste it in, and then what you'll notice at the end is that after you see the path for the location of the file, the last 6 characters are a question mark, WEB equals 1. Those are not necessary. So you back out to delete them, clear them, whatever it is. And that's what you want. And then you click OK. And Power BI it's bringing it in to Power BI desktop. All right. And I usually select the table. I'm not certain if there's a different behavior if you were to select form or table. There's probably some subtle distinction, but I'm not going to be concerned about that. You could bring both of them in, but that will just duplicate the data you're bringing in. And then I click in transform data, and that brings it in to Power BI. It brings it into the query. I'm going to have a session that we'll talk a little bit more about how you do things in here, but I'll just call this my TechSoup demo. You can call it whatever you like. And if you don't think some of these columns are necessary, you can hide them, you can reformat them, you could change their data type and stuff like that. But I'm just going to close that out. And actually what I'm doing is I'm putting in a duplicate of what I already have. It's not going to hurt anything, but just to show you how you get from point A to point B, and now that it's here. Okay, and then I can expand that, and I could put in I could select any of these. I could put in the ID, and I'm just going to click a few more columns in here. And then I'm going to jump over to actually, these were the questions. It was about training, support, internet, apps, and device. And did you have them? So you can see the data coming in here. And I'm just going to jump back over here. So what I did was, here's the data table. And then I created, these are called measures, and there's 13 responses. There's 11 different people. Some people completed the survey twice. And then I created these simple column visuals. And so what this is telling me is that where do we feel the most pain? What's in support? We are lost. We have a device. This is all fictitious data. I'm making this up. But yeah, we've got the computer, we've got internet, and we've got an app, but I don't really know how to use it. And when things don't work, I don't have anybody. So that's what it's telling us here. We need more training, and we need more support. Other areas, they need broadband internet. So you might see that would be through the roof. And then you're stuck in the mud. You can't even really do much. Okay, so that's the way you might interpret it. And then what we do is we'll publish it. We'll send it up. I'm going to send this to a different location. I'll send it up into my workspace. Where I actually have it is in the group. I created that. And then in the Microsoft ecosystem, we have Microsoft Teams group. You have a workspace associated with it on Power BI. And so it's all, working very nicely together. I'm just going to send this one up to my workspace. And here you can see it's publishing it up there. Okay, I'm going to click on the link to look at it up here. And it's up here is where I can share it. I can embed the report. Let's say I'm going to publish it to the web. Okay, I'm going to agree to do that. I read the warning. And then I could just copy this here. I could go over to, say, tiny URL, and you could either log in. Again, really nice. You could log in with your Microsoft account. So you just click there. You don't have to set up anything new. It'll pull you right in, and you can see there's all of my URLs that we can set up. I'm going to set up another one here. And I think if I just paste it. And what I want it to be is Let's see. Eli is great. Okay, so it's like Eli, not really Elias, but okay. So that's I'm just having some fun with that, and hope you're okay with me doing that, Eli. I'm going to copy it, and then that I can just use and that should show me the report. So if I
Right. So
wanted to
you
send
expose that information publicly. And what I think is especially magic about that is if people keep on filling out the report, the
yeah,
dashboard is just going to automatically update, unlike these static graphs that
yeah,
I'm exporting in my own current process.
yeah, and here's just a comment on that. So this is a Power BI feature. This is called Screen for Digital Inclusion. So I would go down to all the way down to the bottom here, and it should be in here, Screen for Digital Inclusion. It's in a section called Data Sets. Okay, so it's in a section called Data Sets. I go over here and I go into the settings, and I've got to edit my credentials. Auth 2, I'm just going to organizational, let me in, it's me. Yeah, that's me. Okay. All right, great. Okay, so I'm in. And then I would click on the scheduled refresh. I would turn it on, and then I would add as many times. When you're on the pro version, you can add 8. So it's not real time. It's not going to be every 3 minutes or something like that. But on the for nonprofits in the United States is $3.50 per user per month for Power BI Pro. And that allows you to set up 8 refresh time periods. So I do them every maybe couple hours, or if it's during the workday, you could just, if there's an 8-hour workday you want to cover, you could set it up for the hours of the workday, and then you apply that, and it will refresh for you on those times that you ask it. Yeah, so
Cool.
that's it. I know I really raced through that.
And that's fine. There's a lot in there. Thank you. That's really
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah,
And yeah, it gives me some good ideas for my own work for how I can start changing some of my reporting.
yeah.
If you want, I'll do one last quick demo and then we can see if anyone else wants to bring something into the
Sure.
mix. What I want to demo next is actually basically something that we also saw in on Jerome's computer, which is you'll see that his mouse did not look like a real mouse, which meant it was much easier to follow. And so as an example, I also got a little app here. So I think it's called, and I dropped a link into the chat as well. And so what these are is there's all these little interesting apps that will allow you to basically change or highlight your mouse. And sometimes you can even do things like, oh, I just want to, show someone as I'm doing a demo this section here. Let me zoom in. Ooh. And so this is great for people who do webinars, who do demos, who are doing screen recordings, which is sometimes you just want to make it real easy for people to follow your mouse on screen, because otherwise, especially in a low
Yeah,
resolution screen, or
yeah,
finding a mouse can be quite hard. It's also a good accessibility thing for some people who struggle to follow a mouse. But for all of us, it's super helpful. You'll see when I click, it goes orange in this case, and I was able to set that color. Some of them will allow you to do
okay.
that. But the most important thing is basically just like my mouse is easy to follow, great for demos like this. I should have remembered in my last demo to turn it on, and I was reminded by Jerome. So thank you. That's all I wanted to show is this cool little mouse trick. Jerome, on your computer, how did you
Yeah,
do it?
yeah. Let me see. I'll do a quick screen share here, and let me just move this out. It's in the settings. So I'm on a Windows computer, and let's see. Let me start over. So when you go into the settings, am I? Oh, I'm not. I got to select my screen. Sorry about that. Okay. So is it doing the screen share now? I think. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I went into settings down here on a Windows computer to settings, brings me up here, and I'll say, I think mouse, change your mouse
Um,
settings. I think it was in here. let's see. So I go over to mouse. Now, where was the color
If you
though?
search for mouse again, I think I saw something about display mouse size, and that I think probably would give you. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, so you could see I have Lime selected. And yeah, so some of the questions that come up for us are about technology accessibility, people, if they have, I don't know, what is the term, color blindness or high contrast, low contrast. You have different options in here, and you can make visual feedback for touch points darker and larger. So I haven't tried every option in here. This will, yeah, as you can see, my mouse just got pretty gigantic up here by changing the size here. So and that absolutely is very useful. You could change the size pretty easily, change the color, and then you can go into this contrast mode. And there's probably other things you can do. I haven't tried what you demonstrated where when you click it changes the color. So possibly that is, you can do something like that in here. I took a training, it was a 1 hour training. If you go to the Microsoft events, is it okay if I show that?
Yeah, go for it. We've got about 5 more minutes.
Okay, so let's see if I could bring that up over here. So if I go to, I should be able to find it. It's Microsoft Events Workshop. Okay, and this was really valuable. Okay, so the virtual workshops and training. Let's see, I'll put that in the chat. And I didn't know, I don't know if I knew about this before I knew about it. I didn't know about it until I knew about it. Is that how it goes? And so if I go into business and if I do where do I do the search? And what is it called then? Assistive technology. What is the term? Am I using the right term or am I not using the right term?
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I think assistive technology or accessibility, maybe.
Accessibility. I think that's it. Let me try that. I think you're right. I think it's accessibility. Yeah, it's this one, I think, creating accessible content. So it's either this one or a related one where when these are available to anybody, they go through how to, if on this would be, of course, I believe on a Windows computer, go through different ways of working with fonts, colors, size, mouse, and using the accessibility features on a Windows laptop, which I think is tremendously valuable to most of us, and particularly to those individuals who might have a different experience with color, vision, or sound. I thought it was just fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. That's really helpful. So we're coming up towards the end of our time here today, but hopefully people watching found something interesting here. I've dropped the links into the chat with the sort of the formats on how to do these trends and the show and tell event. But essentially, it's like this. It was quite informal. You probably line up 4 people and they show how they get some of their work done. People can stop them and ask questions. And as you can see, when I look at my registrations for my events, these actually tend to be some of the most popular events we do, just because there's like lots of interesting tools and approaches that can be shown within these events. Thank you all for joining me today.